It was a completely normal day at Centerville railway station. But still there was a little excitement in the air, as it does some days without you being able to explain why. It wasn't the snow that did it, for it fell as calmly and fluffy as other days. There was no particular fuss inside the waiting room. There was only an old man and an old lady, waiting for the midday train. The great stove whizzed as sleepily as always, the station clock ticked away, and Samuel Semaphore, Centerville's own station master, stood in front of the mirror and twisted his long cheeky-tipped moustaches.
"Steam boiler,"
he said, taking a step back and then one step forward again.
"Steam boiler, I must have got frost in one of the mustache tips. It tickles very much in it, as long as it doesn't wither and falls off. Because then, steam boiler."
Steam boiler, that was a word Samuel used when he was upset. It was a word that calmed one's nerves. It was big and round and friendly. He put on his station master's cap, took it off and put it back on again. Then he unfolded the large red signal flag, the one that is rolled up on a pole and with which you stop trains, and checked that it went in color with the tie. Then he straightened the handkerchief and removed dust grains from a button. A train whistled in the distance. Samuel completely turned around and marched with steady steps through the waiting room and out on the platform. On the way, he helped the old man and the old woman with their suitcases and held up the door for them. Inside the kiosk at the far end of the waiting room, Susanna, Samuel's wife, stood and boiled coffee, so great clouds of coffee steam billowed out through the hatch. Susanna was round and had red cheeks. She cooked the best coffee and baked the best gingerbread cookies along the entire railway line between South Bell and Centerville. She thought Samuel was a handsome man in his neat station master uniform, but that the pointy moustaches just were stupid.
"But something a station master must have to play with,"
she sighed, as she took out a hot baking sheet with brown gingerbread cookies from the small oven inside the kiosk. She herself could barely fit there. Samuel was standing on the platform, awaiting the train. He saw the locomotive came puffing like a snorting ox. He narrowed his eyes at the lanterns and struck out with the flag like a bullfighter. To stop train was Samuel's great masterpiece. Many locomotive engineers braked far too early when they saw him and must then start again to get to the right place in front of the station. But this time the train slowed down right on the inch, and that annoyed Samuel a lot, of course. The engineer stuck out his sooty nose and made a face at him.
"Got you there, just because you made a fuss. But I'm not afraid of any station master in all the world. My locomotive only stops when I want to."
"Try to go past Centerville, if you dare,"
said Samuel and blew his nose in the signal flag. A station master should absolutely not do so, and Samuel only did it when he had gotten upset. The engineer pretended not to hear the last remark. Instead he looked at all the passengers, who hurried out of the carriages and into the waiting room for coffee and to nibble on gingerbread cookies at Susanna's kiosk. Some were large, others were small. Some wore boots, others small, high-heel shoes, which tip-tapped through the snow. Some had red noses, others blue. Some dug into their pockets for money, others held on to their quarters like pinchers, as if they never intended to release them away.
"You have 10 minutes to drink coffee. Not a second longer. The locomotive may get a runny nose if it has to wait any longer."
He picked up his big gold watch and set it a small mark at the place where the pointer would be when 10 minutes had passed.
Have you heard that Santa Claus isn't planning to come to Centerville this year either? He has been offered to come to South Bell instead and to be picked up by helicopter. Have you heard that, Samuel, station master?"
Samuel got hot around the ears of surprise, and at first he couldn't make a sound. Admittedly, it was true that Santa hadn't been to Centerville in 10 years, but only a couple days ago, he had written a card to Santa and invited him. He hadn't gotten an answer yet, but he took it for granted that Santa Claus would come.
He's coming.
Samuel said and stomped so hard that the ice bits sprayed on his heels.
Santa Claus will come to Centerville. I have invited him. And now I'll be telehumming him too.
What do, you said? I need to shake soot out of my ears. Telehumming? Are you joking me?
It's no joke, it's the darkest seriousness. Telehum is something I have invented all by myself. It is a device that is a mixture of telephone and telegraph. But instead to say hello and other silliness, you say tee-tee-ta-ta. Have you understood that, locomotive engineer?
Yes, of course. Clearly I have understood that. Telehum. Well, it's probably best that I continue now. As said, the locomotive can get a runny nose, and a locomotive that sneezes is the worst I know.
I will tell the passengers.
And so he opened the door to the waiting room and screamed,
Everyone on board. In 10 seconds we move on puffing. Just get on board.
With gingerbread cookies in the cheeks and coffee pouring from the mouth, everyone came running. A few had the coffee cups still in their hands and stirred with the spoons as they ran. Some had more than gingerbread in the cheeks. They had candy, sugar cubes, wheat buns and other goodies. Some cheeks resembled large, red balloons. Samuel blew his whistle and waved the pole, on which the flag sits. At the tip of the rod is a round, green piece of sheet metal. The train should run when you wave with it. Samuel drew a sigh of relief when the train finally had puffed away. It crawled of tension, like little ants, on his back. Was it really true, what the engineer had said? That Santa was going to disappoint Centerville again this year?